Better put the word out. Get ready for the nerd out. Better put specs on. Better break necks, son. I cut handsome checks for my expansion sets. They call me
What's up, comic fam? It's your boy, the Bearded Comic Bro, and it is time again for another video. And today's video is going to be a little different than usual. I'm going to be ranking the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm going to rank all 23 movies. I'm going to do them in 4 shorter videos. I'm going to start with 23. We're going to end with 1. So the first 3 videos are going to have 6 movies in it, and I did 6. Math is hard. There's going to be 6 movies in the first 3 videos, and then there's going to be my top 5 MCU in the last video. So, I'm excited. I'm also a little nervous because I know when you do rankings, people are invested in these movies. Their emotions are tied to it. And I know there are going to be movies that are in my bottom 6 that people love, that they say, you're insane. How did this make your bottom 6 list? And people are going to consider some of these hot takes. But what I did was very simple. I watched all the movies within probably a month time frame here during quarantine. And I did it in theatrical release order. So I started with the first one, Iron Man, and I watched it. Iron Man then was my number 1 favorite movie right there because it was the only one I watched. Then I moved to Incredible Hulk. And then after that finished, I had to say, okay, do I like it better than Iron Man or less than Iron Man, right? And then would watch the next one, and Iron Man 2, and where did it fit? So there are definitely, it was all fresh in my mind. There are some movies that I know I came in with preconceived notions of like, this is a horrible Marvel movie that has moved up a lot higher than I thought. There was one that I guarantee you would have been in my bottom 6 if I was just telling you before I did this experiment, and it's in my top 10. And so you never know. It's going to be different for everyone. With that being said, I don't think very few of these are in my bottom 6 are bad movies. They're just testaments to what I prefer more of the other Marvel movies. So, without further ado, we're going to get into 23 through 18. So, hey, let's talk comic book movies.
I can feel your anger. It gives you focus.
So, let's jump into the list at number 23. I think this is not going to be much of a surprise or a shocker because I think most people have this lower on their list of favorite Marvel movies, and that for me is Thor: The Dark World. Now, this is one that I rewatched going through all the times when I prepped to watch Endgame or when I prepped to do this series. It just is one that I feel like I just have to make it through. It's not one that I rewatch on my own. If it's on TV, I'll skip through it. It's one of the few Marvel movies where I probably won't put it on unless I'm doing something like this where I'm trying to make it through, watching them in order. And this is just kind of making it through that for me. It didn't hit the right notes for me. And so Thor: The Dark World is my least favorite of the MCU. Like I said, not something I think is going to surprise a lot of people. Number 22 on my list is Iron Man 3. Now, a lot of people didn't like Iron Man 3 compared to the other 2 as much, but I think people are going to be a little shocked that it's this low on my list. And I remember watching it and it felt off to me. The whole movie, I didn't like how the switcheroo with the Mandarin, it didn't have the right feel for what I was wanting for in Iron Man 3, which is sad because the other Iron Man movies are higher up on my list. And I think the biggest turnoff, I didn't like the villains in this one. I didn't like the end battle. It just felt so anticlimactic. Like anytime something would happen, another Iron Man suit would fly up. Oh, I'm falling. Oh, don't worry, Iron Man suit. Like, it would just fly. There's 25 Iron Man suits. Like, so there just wasn't a sense of danger to it. Like, I didn't like how it felt for me. Like, it just didn't connect. So, Iron Man 3 was at number 22. Up next, at number 21, is Captain Marvel. Again, not necessarily a bad movie. It just didn't do it for me. I don't know if it's that I was getting to the fact of I was getting maybe Marvel fatigue, a little bit with movies. Maybe it was I'm not familiar with Captain Marvel's character at all, except for through the cinematic universe. It also, like, I like movies with the nostalgia of, like, oh, it's set in 1980s, right? Like, and it's reminding you, but it was so on the nose with a lot of stuff like, oh, I'm crashing through a blockbuster. I'm reminding you that I'm set in an older era. It just felt too on the nose with a lot of that stuff. Again, it's one that I'll watch again. It's one that if it's on TV and we're watching, I'll watch it. Like, it's not necessarily a bad movie to me. It just doesn't have it up to the rankings of the other movies. So, Thor: Dark World, 23. Iron Man 3 is at 22. Captain Marvel is at 21. And here's probably my probably first hot take. At number 20 for me, on my list of Marvel rankings, is Spider-Man: Far From Home. I didn't like it. Let me say that. I didn't hate it. I didn't enjoy it. Which is sad. I love the character of Spider-Man. Spider-Man's probably one of my favorite characters in just Marvel. But the movie just didn't do anything for me. Mysterio was a fine villain. I thought he was one of the better villains that they've created and expanded in the MCU. And maybe it's just that I'm getting older and the angsty teen drama, I'm like, I'm over it. I don't know. But Spider-Man: Far From Home was one that I was excited for. And maybe it's, it's still in my mind of coming off of Endgame and, what that plays into it with Spider-Man Homecoming or Spider-Man: Far From Home. And, I think there's still some of those notes that a lot of people had with the Spider-Man Iron Man relationship, like trying to make him to be a mini Iron Man. It just didn't feel like I want Spider-Man to just kind of be Spider-Man. And I feel like that's where they'll go if they hit to a third movie here. I think the relationship with Tony Stark will be there, but it's run its course. And I think then we're going to get to focus in on Spider-Man. And I think the relying on the Tony Stark relationship for me, and I know it's in the first one too, so it's there, but maybe it's just because it's so much so again in the second one. I think it takes away from the brilliance of Peter Parker as who he is, because it's so heavily tied now to Tony Stark. So I didn't love it, and I went in hoping to and wanting to, and it just fell on its face, in my opinion, for me. So that is number 20. Two more left on this video, gang, and that is at number 19. It is Doctor Strange. Another one that I love. Benedict as an actor, I think he is fantastic. The movie just feels like a lesser made Marvel movie, and I know in the comics of Doctor Strange and Iron Man's relationship, where they both kind of bicker and are snarky, and they're both very similar personalities. But for me, watching the movie Doctor Strange, I'm going, this is Tony Stark B. It felt like Benedict was trying to do a Tony Stark impersonation in this movie, and it bothered me. It didn't resonate well with me. The end, you get the knock that a lot of people had with, the buildings moving around and how it looks like a cheap knockoff of Inception. And the truth is it does. And you can't discredit that, I think, when you're talking about movies. I think sometimes, especially with the Marvel movies, we can blanket it that they're all perfect, they're all beautiful things. And it sometimes is like, yeah, no, they're not all great. And they all don't hit the notes that the top 15 probably do. So Doctor Strange just doesn't do it for me. Number 19 is Doctor Strange for me. And at number 18, we have yet again making this list, Thor, the first Thor movie. I thought it was a cool origin story. I thought it was fine. Again, it was another one that the pacing just wasn't there for me. I wasn't invested in Thor's character as much yet. It just felt off. And what it's hard to do these rankings because it's hard to separate Thor 2 with the Thor persona that we get in Ragnarok, or the Thor persona we get in Infinity Wars and Endgames. Chris Hemsworth definitely takes a turn of character in these movies, and I think we forget that, and we kind of lump it in of like, oh, all the Thor movies like are good because Chris Hemsworth is a good Thor, but the first two just really weren't that great, in my opinion. Weren't entertaining. And maybe that's, again, I don't know enough about Thor. Maybe that's more his model, of the character in the comic books. But for me, I was like, I appreciated what they did with the development of his character later on in the movies. So that's it. That's my bottom 6. So we had 23, we had Thor: The Dark World. At 22, we had Iron Man 3. 21, we had Captain Marvel. 20, we had Spider-Man: Far From Home. 19, Doctor Strange. And at 18 was Thor. So, make sure you guys tune into the next video that's going to drop here very soon as we look at 17 through 12 and find out what movies make it in that list for me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Leave comments below. How many of my movies that were in my bottom 6 don't make your bottom 6? Where am I completely insane on? What are some of your bottom 6 movies? Let me know in the comments. And make sure you guys tune in. Let's see where we go from now with the next 6. And yeah, as always, hopefully you guys can find some time to curl up, grab a book, and nerd out. Peace.